Mm-mm. Hey, is it time for the 76ers to tear this thing down and rebuild? We'll talk about that and more next on Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook partner of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com Locked On today to get started. Thanks for making Locked On 76er your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. What's up, Jeff? How you been, man?
I've been good, except for the Sixers aren't making this offseason fun.
Yeah, I know, right? Destroying vacations, doing everything for people. But look, y'all, I just want to introduce Jeff now. For some of you guys, Jeff used to come on the show quite a bit. So I don't feel like I need to do any introductions, but I am going to do it. Now, Jeff is the co-host of the Harder Sports Radio show that airs on Fridays. It's a great show, right? The thing about Jeff is I like Jeff a lot. You know what I mean? We both, I guess Jeff has 2 degrees. So he has 2 degrees. His best degree is from the University of Pittsburgh, right? So that's my guy. Now, unfortunately, you got to feel sorry for him because he went to Michigan. Now, Michigan isn't really a good academic school. I just try to tell
you. Whoa.
I'm messing with you, Jeff. I'm messing with you.
Just for you, I decided to wear this. So we're
okay.
All good.
All right, let me try to go ahead and switch.
But they do hail Pitt too, so we're good.
Yeah, but I always felt uncomfortable with that, like hail to Pitt, because like I remember as a kid growing up. And if I'll be honest, I used to like Michigan football as a kid growing up. Do you remember how they used to have the Michigan football show that came on?
Wow.
The Michigan game?
I can't believe it took this many years to get that admission out of you.
Yeah, I used to love Michigan. I mean, because remember they had Michigan, Notre Dame, like they were like national programs back then. So you would see and they would sing "Hail to the Victors," right? Hail to the Victors, and they would have Anthony Carter was the wide receiver. He was like the first number 1 that I saw. I can't believe I'm admitting to this stuff. But anyway, so they had Anthony Carter, and he's like running down like with his arms up. And then you go to Pitt, and it's like, hail to Pitt. And I'm like, yo, this sounds like a knockoff. I didn't like it. So I didn't say it. I didn't say it. Like I didn't really say it. But yeah.
you just said it. It's all out there now. There's nothing you can do.
I hope
your true love for Michigan has just come through.
I hope no one. Yo, I lied.
Your credibility is shot one way or the other.
You don't want to hear me coming out of the closet singing Michigan stuff. But Jeff, today I want to talk about, you and I, we talked about this, off air. About the Sixers. Is it time for them to tear this thing up and rebuild? So I really want to talk to you about that in the first segment, right? Maybe we could go a little different. The second one, I want to talk about James Harden. I want to get your impressions of him, and I'm, of this whole ordeal, right? And thirdly, I want to ask you a little bit about Tyrese Maxey. Do you think he, what do you think about him moving forward? But in regards to tearing this thing up, man, what's your thoughts? Or do you think the Sixers should?
Unfortunately, it's time. I don't see it, but it's time not because of any other reason than I don't see how you can fix this. That's the problem. I mean, the Sixers have now we're talking about a decade of the process now. And the process has been a disaster now with 3 different front offices. This is not one front office fix. This was Hinkie, this was Colangelo, this is now Morey. And you have been unable to acquire and keep the right talent. It's not even the draft picks. It's everything that they've done since. Everybody still pulls their hair out. Yes, I know I'm pulling my hair out because I don't have a comb. But because it's too early in the morning, dude. But the fact is, they didn't even keep Jimmy Butler when they had the right pieces to get him. So what do you do at this point? You want to talk about James Harden later, but the problem is James Harden wasn't the solution to begin with. He was a Band-Aid to get rid of Ben Simmons. And so Harden, whether he stays or he goes, I don't see them getting past the second round again. And so the Sixers, in my mind, have just developed a new level of mediocrity. Instead of mediocre being just missing the playoffs and being in the middle, now it's making the playoffs, getting to the second round, and getting no further. And everybody in the city sees that under the current construction, you can't do anything. The cap won't allow you to do anything. So the only way to fix this situation, and by the way, it's not a short fix, it is going to be blowing it up, and God help us all if anybody calls it the process. But the only way to get pieces at this point is to trade the one thing that's going to get you draft picks, which is Joel Embiid, who appears, you know better than I, but he doesn't appear to be happy, even though he was just a couple months ago named the MVP.
Yeah. See, to me, it's like, okay, so I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be a little selfish here. And so my thing isn't based off of reality, is based off of emotion, right? And when we come down to emotion, like this will be my 11th season covering the Sixers. I dealt with the process and covering the process as much as we had. I mean, it kept me busy. I had a lot of stories to get from that, but it was horrible, dude. Like outside of, the fans, and I get it. We saw so many. There were a lot of people that had high expectations who didn't live up to it. I mean, we could go down a laundry list of players who failed here, who failed. And then there were several who made it, who the front office made bad decisions to get rid of. Jeremy Grant, solid role player, who's now making a boatload of money. TJ McConnell, who they decided not to re-sign because they felt like they could do better, and they haven't been able to do better from a backup point guard standpoint. But then there was the failures of, the mental health of Markelle Fultz, right? Of people saying his shoulder. It was a lot of different things. Ben Simmons.
What about? Why don't we go back a bit? What about Drew Holiday?
Yeah, I mean, that was when you sit back, they traded a 21-year-old All-Star for Nerlens Noel and someone else to start the process. And this 21-year-old All-Star is still one of the league's best defenders, and he's still an All-Star, right? You know what I mean? Won a championship.
And that's what I was going to say. Not only that, he won a championship.
Won a championship. So I don't, from a standpoint, I don't want to see that again. I mean, that's how bad it was, right? But also you realize you went out there and you got Daryl Morey, who was supposed to be, he's probably one of the most recognizable executives of all sports. So you go out there and you paying this guy $12 million a year, and you want to tell me the best alternative is a rebuild? I mean, like, seriously, like, that's what we're doing now? Like, the guy is making $12 million to help get this team catapulted out of the second round, and you trying to tell me now the best thing to do is to trade the MVP and get multiple picks and get all this other stuff and rebuild. I don't know. It just seems to me like by doing that, and I guess you have to do it because you're right. Second round window, you did all this other stuff. But by doing that, you're admitting that everything that you did was a failure. And
But what choice do you have if you don't admit that what you did
no,
is a failure?
man, you don't.
I mean,
You're right. You don't have a lot of choices. You don't. I mean, because right now you look at it, and we're going to talk about James Harden a little bit. I mean, more in depth in the second round. But right now you can't win one with him, and you sure as heck can't win one without him because you don't have a type of replacement unless you think Pat Bev can give you a lot, right? But you just don't have it. It's a place that players don't really want to come to, right? They just don't. Joel Embiid, yes, he's the MVP, but he has an injury history. He's getting a little bit older. So you got to wonder how long is he going to play at a high level? We don't know. So I see what you're saying, but the build up. I mean, to be honest with you, this is setting up to be a 30 for 30. Like it is. Like the process or this decade is set up to be for a 30 for 30 with all the failures. But to me, just to do all this stuff that they did, I mean, you think about it. It started with Sam Hinkie. Then from Sam Hinkie, then it becomes Jerry Colangelo, who hires his son, Brian Colangelo. And then all of a sudden it's like, is Brett Brown running the show for a little bit. Then it's Elton Brand, right? Then from Elton Brand, then all of a sudden, they had another guy who they ended up firing. Like they redid, like they kept Elton, but they got rid of other people within the front office, right? And then it's, okay, we got Doc Rivers coming. And then we got Daryl Morey. The team has arrived. They have arrived. And then all of a sudden, I think we got to tear it down again. And when you think about it, you can argue that the biggest mistake was
Jimmy Butler.
Nah, that the biggest mistake was getting rid of Tony DeLeo and the old front office crew. Because it's like they fired them to get to get Sam Hinkie, and they got Sam Hinkie, and that's when they rebuilt stuff. So at that particular time, the Sixers had a young all-star in Drew Holiday, who's a great guy that people want to play with. They had another young players in Evan Turner and them, and I get it. Evan Turner didn't live up to be the number 2 pick. But they had a lot of cap space at the time. They were a young team that everybody was saying, they made it to the second round, but they're a young team. We just got to add pieces to it and we'll be fine. And what they did is they just nuked the whole thing and then start going after draft picks, big name picks, like guys like Nerlens Noel, the great high school player, Jalil Okafor, National Player of the Year in high school, stuff like this. They did all that. And you look at it and they might have been if this thing doesn't work right now, and you talk about cap space, in my opinion, they were better off when they started the rebuild back in 2013 than they are now in 2023.
But thanks for waking me up to make me this depressed. I mean, I was a season ticket holder until 2 years ago when I finally gave up on this. I don't know what else you can do, though. I mean, we can go through the history time and time again of all the failures. The problem is the solution doesn't seem to be able to reload or find the pieces because of the predicament that the prior regimes and the current regime created. And by the way, I'm not too sure that the current administration can solve the problem. The guy that you brought here wanted his guy. The second he got here, what did he want? He wanted James Harden.
That's part of the reason they hired him, right?
That's yeah. And so he fought and he fought and he fought and he got old James Harden.
Yeah.
And then what did he do? He put all of the old pieces back around James Harden and just had Joel Embiid in the middle of the old Rockets.
Yeah, you're right.
How is that a solution? And it wasn't a long-term solution. It was a gamble. It was, okay, we're going all in with our chips. And all in didn't work. Even if you have James Harden come back this year and all of a sudden change his attitude and say he loves Philadelphia, he's going to play his hardest, and he's going to sit there and play for this next contract of his. Even if you get that James Harden, I don't see that they have enough. They have a bunch of guys that are older, except for Tyrese Maxey. And there's nobody to go out and get at this point. So what are you going to do if you bring him in? You get Harden for a year. You're not signing him even at that point for a long-term deal. You got Maxey, hopefully, that you can extend, but they chose not to extend him this past offseason. And you have Embiid, who's going to be sitting there saying, I'm another year older. I'm another year closer to being bumped and bruised. I got to go get a championship. And there's no place I'm going to get it this year, because you and I have talked about the fact that even if they have these two max contracts for free agents next season, who's part of that free agent class?
Yeah. I mean, the only person like now to highlight the news of the day is Giannis saying, hey, unless I get some, unless they do what's right, I'm not picking it up. So basically, when I hear stuff like that, is you got to know that Giannis's brother is going to get a contract. You have to know that other people that he wants are going to get contracts. That's kind of like a power play. But look, the thing is, I'll be honest with you. When you look back at the Sixers, part of the problem is that they went after names. It was all about names. Like, think about it. Like, okay, so the draft picks, they drafted names, right? People who were exciting, like the Markelle Fultz thing. And, I thought Markelle was a thing, but Markelle was heading into that draft. He was the hype. Everybody was talking about Markelle Fultz, this kid from DeMatha who was at the University of Washington putting up numbers, right? Ben Simmons. Everybody talked about Ben. And then even when you go down to Doc Rivers, Doc, look at Doc. Doc Rivers is the guy. Like, Doc Rivers was the coach that, at one point in time, it was Popovich, Doc, they were like on the Mount Rushmore of the coaching, right? The coaching fraternity. And then Daryl Morey, look at Daryl. Like, Daryl is a recognizable guy. Everybody knows who he is. And I felt like that's what the Sixers were about. It wasn't a lot of like detail. Let's go after this guy and pick this person up. Like, you know what I mean? It was all like they went after the all name squad in a lot of instances. And I feel like that's led to them to struggling because
but that goes back to your whole Tony DeLeo point. Is they got rid of the sound decision makers and went after names. I mean, if you go back and yes, hindsight's 20/20, but if you go back and look at those picks, Markelle Fultz, instead of taking Jason Tatum, where did that make any sense? Any sense, even at the time? Where did it make any sense to go after Ben Simmons when we knew he couldn't shoot? He wasn't even able to elevate LSU. Where were those decisions good, sound decisions? It was always to have the press conference. And at the end of the day, nobody cares about those press conferences unless there's a championship celebration going after it. Unless there's a parade in the city, nobody cares about being splashy anymore.
Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. I mean, that's what it is. They won the press conferences and they lost everything else. They lost the playoff series. I mean, but that's what it was about. But look, Hey, yo, I want to talk to you guys about FanDuel, right? FanDuel. Football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to win all season long. Because right now, when you bet on the Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. You can use your bonus bets on spreads, player props, over unders, and more. So visit fanduel.com/locked on and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's fanduel.com/locked on. Take some time to visit FanDuel and include money lines, props, etc. around your team. I'm telling y'all, do it today, people, but definitely do it today. Also, thanks for making Locked On 76er your first listen every day. Every dayers, tomorrow's show, or actually Monday's show, will be on, I guess, sorry, we got to give y'all the updated drama on the Sixers, right? And whatever it's going to be, it's probably going to be some more James Harden stuff. It's what's Joel Embiid thinking, all that stuff. So, it's very fluid. Things could change from now to Monday, but make sure you give me a listen on Monday. Come back. But look, man, I got to ask you, we talk about James Harden drama, Jeff. When we talk about it, like, what's your whole opinion of this madness?
First of all I ever heard was James Harden thought he was the smartest person in the room. That room must consist of one dude. That's it. Because I don't get. Look, part of what I do when I'm not doing this is being an attorney, and I don't understand his whole negotiating ploy. He has tried to get himself out of every city the second that it doesn't go right for him. So he's got that reputation. On top of that, he had a chance to be a free agent this offseason, and he thought he was going to get some sort of max deal. He doesn't get it after the whole second half of the season. What did we hear? Not him focused on the Sixers. We heard him talking about or shooting out rumors about, or having his people shoot out rumors about how he was going to go back to Houston. Houston didn't want him. They went out and got Fred VanVleet. And what was he stuck doing? Taking the option for 1 year for $35 million. And the second he signs it, he says he doesn't want to be with the team that he signed the extension with, hoping that they would trade him to somebody else. And now he's upset with the fact that the Sixers won't take pennies on a dollar to trade him. Where exactly has he negotiated well?
Yeah, it sounds like a guy who needs it sounds like a guy who hasn't had an agent,
but he has one.
Yeah, but he has one now.
But let me ask you this: if all we're now hearing is him complaining about how he would never play for Morey, that Morey's a liar. Okay, regardless of whether he is or he isn't, don't care. The fact is, James Harden might be the last person in the NBA who can claim somebody else is dishonorable or a liar. He played for Houston and fat suited himself out of that place. He got to Brooklyn so he could get to Brooklyn. He gets to Brooklyn. He doesn't like that situation. And how many points did he score in his last game for Brooklyn before he made 4 points? How hard was he trying there? Now he's in Philadelphia, and what happened? The Celtics were begging to lose that series. And what did James Harden do in that last game of that series? Did he look like he was giving full effort at that point? I don't think so. And so now he has this offseason and he wants to go somewhere else. Which contract has James Harden ever honored? And he wants to call somebody else a liar.
Yeah, I mean, you're raising a point. I mean, here's the thing. I feel like part of it, and I'm sorry, people, if I keep saying this over and over again, and it's the best analogy I have, but it's kind of like, I think Daryl Morey and them helped create this madness with him, right? And so you come to a point where you become entitled, right? I mean, he's the one who knows that people were going to Houston and people were coming to see him play. what that happens is you get more power than the coach. You get more power in everything. So you start doing things. And guess what? I want out of Houston. I go ahead and I do what I have to do. And voila, what happens? They get me out of Houston. So let me try the same thing in Brooklyn. And he did it. So in other words, yes, I see your point, but also the problem is you can't allow a person to keep getting away with things. And if that happens, they expect to get away with it all the time because it's easy, right? So I feel like that's what we have here. Now, I think the whole point with the whole Houston thing, like if Ime Udoka wasn't the coach, James Harden would be a Houston Rocket, right? I mean, I honestly believe that. I feel like James, I feel like the Houston thing was real. I mean, that's what everybody was saying. Like people like, yo, he's going to go, he's going to go. But then all of a sudden, even when Fred VanVleet became officially available and everybody knew he was going to become available, the coach who coached James in Brooklyn and saw what was going on, although he was cool with James, he's looking at it like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I can do this. Like, I don't know. And so he went after Fred. He told them, like, look, you can't do this. So that's what happened. But in regards
but listen to what you just said. A guy who coached him said, I don't know about that. James Harden, the people that he plays for and he plays with, they're sitting there going, I don't know. I don't want to play with this guy. I don't want this guy playing for me. He's been in the league long enough that he's sullied so many different people. At this point, who wants to play for him? Where does he think he's going?
Yeah, but see, again, and to me, I also feel like that's why I'm saying, and I didn't come out and say the analogy, but it's one of those things where it's the equivalent of having your kids jumping on the couch every day, all day, saying, F you, dad, F you, dad, and you everybody laughing. And then all of a sudden, when the grandparents come over, get off the couch. No swear words, right? And the kids like, huh? Well, it's kind of like this, the way James is acting is kind of like he did it in Houston and he got away with it. So now all of a sudden you want to take it away from him because let's be real, like a player is just like a child. Anyone, they'll test you and they'll see what they can get away with. And if you allow them to get away with it, they're going to continue to do it. And I feel like this was created. Like James, you know what? James is allowed to do whatever he wants. James Harden is the type of guy, the Sixers, right? The Sixers had a game. They played 2 days after Christmas. They got a game in D.C. So they fly to D.C. After that game, they stay the night in D.C., have 2 off days, off day the next day, and the practice the day after that in New Orleans. And then the next day, they have a game in New Orleans. Well, since they had an off day in D.C., that night in D.C., and then the team was traveling from D.C. to New Orleans, and they weren't going to practice that day, right? After the game in D.C., James took a private jet home. Took a jet home to Houston. Now, he made it to practice the day before that game, right? He made the practice the day before that game. So, to me, I'm saying this, like, somebody had to okay it. And that's the things that he's been doing. So, it gets to a point where he's been doing that for such a long time that it doesn't even become newsworthy anymore. Like, it just is what it is. You understand what I'm saying? So you get that so much type of empowerment that you can do whatever you want to do. Somebody had to allow him to do that.
Oh, I'm not saying it's right. I'm
Yeah,
not saying that. I'm not telling you that the front office has handled this well. I'm just
mhm.
my point is that James Harden is an adult and a professional and should act that way. And even if he wants to do it only for his own self-interest, I don't see how this tactic currently is in his own self-interest, let alone the team's self-interest. What does he get? Where has he gotten himself? He's negotiated himself into a paper bag that he can't get himself out of.
Yeah.
And so, and Morey has negotiated himself into a paper bag that he appears not to be able to get himself out of. So, allowing or sanctioning certain behavior that is not in the best interest of the team hasn't benefited Harden. It hasn't benefited the front office, and it's not benefiting the team. And the only people that are suffering are the fans.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. I think I'm right about what's going on with James Harden from top to bottom. I just don't know what the answer is anymore, unless you just say, you know what, Daryl, it's time for you to go. And then we got to get somebody else in here who's serious about this and just say, you know what, James, we're not doing anything. You got 1 year left here. Deal with it. And if you don't play well, guess what? You're not getting any more money. You're not getting a bag at the end of this. That's it. I mean, James' only shot at this point of getting any money is to play really well for the Sixers this year.
Yeah, that's true. But I do think the one thing you said, I don't think it's going to happen this summer, but I don't expect Daryl Morey to be back after this year. I just
And
don't.
it's too late.
I
Then
mean,
it's too late.
it's too late, but my thing is like, because I feel like James not getting paid, and I know Daryl, I know James is upset with Daryl and this and that, but that's also an owner situation. Like, you know what I mean? They're going to pay who they want to pay, and they're not going to pay who they don't want to pay, right? Um, you know, but so, but I do think like if the way this thing is trending, and let's face it, Daryl's making a lot of money, and I always feel like with especially with the Sixers, there's always been a scapegoat,
I
right?
don't know how much time you have left for this, but I got a question to ask you then.
Hmm.
Is Nick Nurse regretting taking this job? Would you want to walk into this?
I mean, publicly they're all saying, he's fine with it, he's this and that, but if it was me, I would regret it. I mean, like the thing is, you think about it, the best job out there was the Milwaukee job, and even though they lost in the first round, I mean, you look at that Miami team was better than what people thought, in the weak link of the Milwaukee Bucks, and it sounds crazy to say that, but people say the weak link was the coach. Right? And then also they had problem. People forget this team was a team that had injuries throughout the whole season. So as far as playing together and even though they knew each other, playing together, they just weren't there. So for him to turn that job down to come here, I mean, where would you rather live? Would you rather live in Philly or would you rather live in Milwaukee? I mean, I get it, but outside of that, when you talk about stability, you talk about Giannis' situation, you talk about Drew Holiday. I mean, yeah, they had a lot of guys who became free agents, but I'm pretty sure they had an idea that these guys are going to resign, right? So yeah, you have to. And then not only that, think about it, the Phoenix job. Yeah, on at the time, they lost their coach. They did everything else, of course. Um, but when you look at it and you saw what Phoenix did, I mean, they got Kevin Durant, you got Devin Booker, now you have Bradley Beal to the mix, so star power, both of those jobs are way better than this one. I mean, you have to say now, who knows if you want to work with Isaiah Thomas and things like that, who's a consultant there, who has a lot of influence, so that could be something. But yeah, if I'm Nick Nurse, I mean, you want from a situation where they were rebuilding, the Toronto Raptors, so to speak, right? Losing players, and it looked like this could be a similar thing, but here there's more expectations. Like at least in Houston, I mean Toronto, they won a championship. Here they really haven't done anything, so that's the tough spot. If I'm Nick Nurse, yeah, I'm kind of like, okay, this isn't what I really expected. You know what I mean?
Well, if you're a coach, yeah,
you got
if you're a coach, what do you want? You want stability so you can implement your plan. Right now, he can't even come up with a plan because he doesn't know what's going on.
True. You're right. But look, man, when we get right back from this little pause, I want to talk to you, get your impressions of Tyrese Maxey. A man's been working out this summer. Working out. He works out every summer, but he's working out with Drew Hanlon. And a lot of people think he's going to take a major step forward. I want to talk to you about that when we get right back from this little break. So, Jeff, what's your thoughts, man? You see Tyrese, he's in the gym, in the lab, working out with Drew. Tyrese Maxey in the open floor. Tough to stop in transition, right? Gets to the cup. One of the best three-point shooters last season in the NBA, which is something that a lot of people don't talk a lot about, right? What's your expectations for him this upcoming season?
I don't know. Because again, like we were talking about before the break, we don't know what the game plan is. I mean, Tyrese each year has impressed more and more. I mean, look, when they drafted him, I wasn't sold on him. I wasn't sold on him for a while. But, I mean, he's won me over. He's got the skills. He clearly has the intensity. He has the drive. He's got the personality to be a superstar. The question is whether or not he can fit into this offense, which means what offense are they going to play? If it's going to be James Harden and Joel Embiid being ball dominant, then how can Tyrese Maxey take the next step? It's almost like the problem is you need to take a risk here, where if Harden would have left, Maxey becomes the point guard, and then we can see if he can take it to the next level. I don't see how we're going to see that if he's the third option or fourth option on this team.
Yeah. I mean, and yeah. The only thing is, I do think that I think playing with Harden kind of helped his game out a little bit, and a lot, not a little bit, a lot. And what I mean by that is, I think like Harden got him in great situations, like knew when, to get him the ball up. I mean, give the ball up to him in the open floor, like when people are like doubling on Joel and Harden's doing the dribbling thing. And then next thing you know, he kicks the ball to Tyrese in the perimeter, hitting threes. The question mark is to me now, when you look at Tyrese Maxey and you look at Harden, assuming Harden stays. Harden's 34 years old. Well, he'll be 34 tomorrow, right? He'll be 34 on Saturday. So you look at you look at Harden getting older, and if I'm a team now, the focus is going to be on stopping Maxey. Like really, like I'm a stopping him now. So the question mark is, although he's becoming a better player, how is he going to do with a bigger crowd of defenders against him? And that's the major question mark. And then also another question mark is, what about if they don't have James, if they don't have an elite point guard, are you going to say, we want you to bring the ball up? And how is that going to impact his scoring? You know what I mean? Because the last time he was in that situation, it was, a couple years ago when Ben Simmons was holding out. And it was one of those things where, he would dribble the ball up the half court and he would pass it to Tobias and he would go over and play the 2-guard spot, right? Because he just, he's more of in the mode of like a Dwayne Wade. I'm not comparing him to Dwayne Wade, but what I'm saying is He's an undersized 2 guard that was a combo guard. You could call him a combo, but he's more of a scorer than he is a distributor. So to me, that's always been my biggest question mark with him.
Yeah,
like,
but doesn't you're taught that was 2 years ago?
Yeah, I want to see what it's going to be like now. I got to
exactly.
See
so now we need to see the growth. And look,
Yeah.
I don't want to harp on James Harden, but the problem is Harden has spent this offseason saying he wants basketball freedom. He doesn't want to play the way that you said benefited Maxey last season.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to distribute the ball. He wants to be ball dominant again. He wants to be James Harden from the Houston Rockets 5 years ago. And if he's not going to be willing to turn the ball over to his teammates, especially to Maxey, because he wants to be ball dominant and have basketball freedom, then you're not going to see that develop. I want to see this. And by the way, you don't have much more time to figure out whether Tyrese Maxey goes to this next level. Tyrese Maxey's a free agent after next season, right?
True.
So it's time to find out. I think this is, if you don't want it going, we can come full circle on this show. And now, if you don't want to blow this up, then the thing that you need to do is you need to find a way to get rid of James Harden so Maxey can lead this offense, so we can see whether or not Maxey can go to the next level. Because when Maxey came into the league, the biggest problem I saw him having is he played too fast. He would fly up the court and he would get stuck under the basket. He wasn't able. He was so fast and he was so young that he didn't understand the floor yet. And I think that over the last couple of seasons, what you've seen him is understand the floor, understand spacing better, to the point that I think that now he can handle the offense, where he can use his speed but not be too fast, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. You know, the one thing that I will say about Maxey, the whole Maxey situation, is him not signing a contract extension. You know, at first, the way I was looking at it, like, I don't like it for him. Like, I feel like you just got to get your money, right? But the way that this thing could play out, the way it could play out could benefit Maxey in the end, because you're not going to have a James. The fan base is going to get frustrated, and they're going to say, we need some type of star. And if he plays well, he could get paid. He can get like what he wants. You know what I mean? Now, it would be nice going into the season to have that security and this and that. But if they go through a rebuild and they say, we need to keep Maxey, if I'm him and I'm Rich Paul, I want the bank to stay here. You know what I mean? I honestly do, because I feel like if you lose Maxey, and, you know, Embiid, you trade Embiid, to say they trade him, Harden walks, Tobias walks. What else do you have?
I don't know. I'll tell you what they don't have is a new stadium.
Yeah, I mean, but, you know, they don't have the new stadium, but then you may need to have that star power if Maxey elevates his game to get to the new stadium. See, one thing you got to be careful of, and I don't know how good Maxey can be. I don't know if he's going to be an all-star, because it's deep at that position, right? Let's face it, it's deep at that position. But when you look back at 2013, there were some people who thought that a good point guard was a dime a dozen. And they felt like it would, because of that, it would have been easy to get rid of a Drew Holiday and go after and start what the Sixers started. And when we go back and you look back at it now, we found out that Drew Holidays are not a dime a dozen. They're not. Like, they have yet to have a point guard of his caliber. You know, now some people may argue, they got James Harden. Yeah, but they're a different type of point guard, right? Different type of player. Drew Holiday is a two-way player. James Harden is a scorer. Now, he can facilitate. He can do all that. But when we think about it, you got James Harden, who's no longer that elite scorer, right? So I'm just saying, it's like when we say, how good is Tyrese Maxey, and you try to compare him to Halliburton, you compare him to Anthony Edwards, you compare him to all these other guys, and you like, yeah, but he goes down and down the list, right? You'll say that. Just be careful what you ask for, because we said the same thing about Drew Holiday when they got rid of him. Same thing. And they still haven't been able to replace him.
The Sixers, if they learn nothing from the last 10 years, is if they find talent, hold on to it.
Yeah, no doubt. But look, if you find talent, find time. If you find time to listen to talent and listen to great stuff, y'all got to do yourself a favor and listen to the Heart of Sports. And Jeff, it airs on. It comes out on Friday. I'm telling you, it's a really good show. I'm a little upset because they haven't asked me to come on lately. So when the best part about the show, y'all, is first of all, I feel privileged and honored to be on there because some of the guests that they have are really outstanding. But to me, the best part of the show is, making fun of Big Ten football, because you got Jeff, who's a Michigan guy, and Jason. Oh man, I can't believe that in the Big Ten. Rutgers, like Rutgers, right? I mean, like, you know what? I hate to say that.
It's not really a Big Ten school.
But Pitt couldn't. Syracuse, like, yo, is the Big Ten?
Look, I'm still frustrated. Pitt's not in the Big Ten. We could have a whole show on that.
Yeah. Well, it was Penn State. They didn't want to send there.
And by the way, you want to complain about it not being in the show? Now be careful what you wish for. Now you're coming on next Friday.
All right, I'll be on. I'll definitely be on. I'll definitely be on. I'm gonna make fun of Rutgers. I mean, so what? Okay, so Rutgers. Believe it or not, did you know like Rutgers has 2 of the top basketball recruits going there?
Yeah, but they can't play football.
Yeah, that's the problem. and even that's the problem. It's like, so now you're a basketball school that no one goes to the games.
Exactly. The Big 10/18 is driven by football, not by basketball.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I have to keep telling myself now because Michigan basketball sucks again. So
yeah, it's crazy though, isn't it? Like, because remember when Juwan Howard first got there, everybody's talking about the recruits. Yep. And then, but before he came there, they had some. You look at it, all the guys who, all of them didn't make it in the NBA, and that's just how it is in sports, right? Like a lot of we find out quickly how tough it is to play in pro sports, but there are a lot of guys in the NBA from Michigan, a lot, and the difference is no one knew who they were. Like in high school, like you had a couple of them that they had big names, a couple of them. But for the most part, it wasn't really like the Wagners. Like, come on, man, they came from Germany. Like, you know what I mean? But you look at them and they're
how about Duncan Robinson?
Huh?
Nobody ever heard of Duncan Robinson outside of Michigan and the D3 school that he played for before that.
Exactly, these type of guys. They were, Duncan Robinson. What's the one dude? Oh man, his name escapes me, but he was the player of the year for y'all. When they went to the NCAA championship game. Point guard. He played for the Sixers.
Nick Stauskas?
No, he played with Nick Stauskas. It was
Glenn Robinson III.
Who?
Glenn Robinson.
Not Glenn, the point guard.
Derek Walton.
No, light-skinned brother. He's from Columbus, Ohio. He plays
Trey Burke.
Yeah, Trey Burke. So see, that's what I'm saying. Like he's the national player of the year, and we're like, who is it? So Trey Burke. The crazy part about him is, he wanted to go to Ohio State. They didn't want to recruit him, right? But he wasn't even the best player on his high school team. So again, those are the things I'm talking about. But let me stop talking about Michigan before people think I like Michigan. And
go on.
I don't. I don't. I'm an Ohio State fan. It's like no. But I just think I don't know, man. Like I shouldn't say this. The thing about Michigan and Ohio,
don't.
the thing about
Then don't.
the thing about Michigan and Ohio State is I just feel like when the games really matter the most,
Mm.
they let you down. You know what I mean? Like once they go up against that SEC type of power, they just let you down. That's just all.
You had to end this one on a bad note, didn't you? The pain.
I mean, am I right though?
Friday morning pain. Oh,
Did I lie? Do they not let you down in the playoffs?
yeah, I know. I was there. I get it.
Oh, you went there? You were there?
Not this past year. I went the year before.
Was that really like heartbreaking? This and that? Did they make fun of y'all? Did their fans tease y'all, taunt y'all?
No, it was about half Michigan fans until the third quarter when we all left. But after 2 years ago when that happened, and friends said to me, "Hey, we got to go. We got to see TCU." I'm like, "No, I've already seen this script. I'm not going again."
Yeah. I mean, wow. I don't know, but Michigan on paper they're good, but I don't know, man. I think y'all would have a tough time beating Vandy in the SEC.
Hey. All right, that's enough of this.
Yeah, all right. But now, Jeff, to let people know where they can find you at.
You can find us on Fridays on 8:60 a.m. in Philadelphia, the heart of sports, or you can find us afterwards. The replay is available anytime on podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, all of it. So anytime you want to listen, anytime you want to just hear any interview, anytime you want to just hear all of the magic that Keith Pompey says when he's on our show, you can even go on our website, type in Keith's name, and all of those interviews come up, and you can listen to every one of them.
See, now you just messed up. No one's going to listen. Now they're going to burn it. It's like now,
or you can block all the key stuff.
Yeah. Now you might get people listening, but nah, like and I'm telling y'all, you go ahead and listen. It's really a great listen. And I'll be honest, Jeff. I mean, like, and to y'all, I mean, the list of people that they have on their guests is like really star-studded. Really star-studded. Everyone goes on that show. So again, it's an honor and it's a privilege to be asked to go on and to talk with them, because I'm telling you, they have everybody. It's like a who's who, and two extremely knowledgeable guys. Again, we can't hold where they went to undergrad at, but this guy went to Pitt for law school. So he's
so close to a compliment.
Yeah. So cool. But outside of that, you guys, please come back to this podcast. You can you can get this podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts at, and especially, make sure you listen to or watch Locked On 76ers YouTube channel. When you go on there, click on the Liberty Bell though. Once you click on the Liberty Bell, you become a new subscriber, and you also get notifications to when we have new podcasts come out. So do that, and I appreciate y'all, and thanks for staying on listening to this podcast. Is a little longer than most, but had my man Jeff on, and Jeff is always dropping knowledge. And again, make sure you go and listen to the Heart of Sports, and you'll get much knowledge as you can. So thank you, Jeff, for coming on the podcast.
No,
I really
appreciate you, man.
it. And I was just joking about the Michigan stuff. Not but
until the next time I come on.
Until the next time. Yeah, this is a running joke. So you guys gotta understand, I couldn't get into Michigan, so I tease them. So, no. But all right, thanks, man. I really appreciate you.
Take care.
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you go?